need you to be a good franchise again. Hey guys, it's the Black Critic Guy, and I just got back from seeing X-Men Days of Future Past. So X-Men Days of Future Past begins in this desolate future in which mutants are being hunted down by these indestructible robotic beings called Sentinels. But they're not the only ones being hunted. Humans are also being hunted, those who have the potential to give birth to mutants or those who assist mutants in any way. And in a Hail Mary effort to save the world from this terrible and desolate future, the few remaining X-Men gather together and come up with the brilliant idea of sending one of them back to the past in order to warn their past selves of this impending future. Logan volunteers his service, so they send him back, and it's up to him to convince past Xavier and past Magneto about the impending future and to change the outcome. Now I was both excited and very skeptical about this movie. I was excited because I wanted to see how they were going to mix these two stories and create one whole mythos. And it was really exciting to see Bryan Singer back on the project, back to the franchise that kind of made his career. So it was exciting to see him helming the X-Men franchise again. But I was also very skeptical because Bryan Singer hasn't been making the greatest movies lately. Forget his personal life. I don't care about that. I care about his directing skills. And lately, he just hasn't been impressing me. So I was a little skeptical about what he was going to do here. And also, whether or not the story would work, you know, because you're bringing two different franchises from two different times together into one story. Could it work? And I gotta say, guys, this is honestly the best X-Men movie I have ever seen. I really, really enjoyed it. And Bryan Singer, way to go, dude. Like, seriously, you did really good at bringing both of them together. Both X-Men First Class, the new generation of X-Men, with the old generation of X-Men, your X-Men basically, putting them together into one mythos, and it blended really well. Really well. I was just so happy and ecstatic that this movie was not only not a complete piece of shit, but it was just a really well-told and well-executed X-Men movie all around. From the story, to the characters and their developments and relationships, to the acting, the direction. And don't worry, I will not spoil a single thing in this video. I promise. First things first, the visuals. The visuals are top-notch here, and it was really good to see all the different mutants using their powers. My favorite one, honestly, was Blink. Blink was freaking awesome, and her powers are just visually mesmerizing. I really, really loved her powers. And Fang Bingbing, you look beautiful, woman. You look amazing. Please have her in the next X-Men movie as Blink, please. And kind of going hand in hand with the visuals, the mutant powers were put on full display here. And yeah, some mutants didn't get enough screen time or development as others, but for the screen time and development that they were given, they used it to their advantage and showed off their mutant powers to their fullest extent. As I mentioned earlier, Blink's power of teleportation opened up these portals where people could go in and out and transport from one place to another. It was really cool. Iceman, this fire guy whose name I do not know, Storm, Magneto, Wolverine, Kitty, I mean everybody, Mystique, Professor Xavier, all of their powers were put on full display here. Oh, I forgot to mention the biggest one of them all, Quicksilver. I was really scared that Quicksilver wouldn't be a good character. I mean, from the way that he looked, it looked terrible. He is actually one of my favorite characters in the movie. I mean, this guy was funny, he was entertaining, and he really had fun with his mutant powers. One of the best scenes in the movie is when he's using his powers at the Pentagon. I can't really go into full detail because it is a spoiler, but when you see it, my God, all my doubts about this character went out the freaking window, and I was like, this guy's awesome. You got a lot of pressure on you, Marvel Studios and Aaron Taylor Johnson. Hopefully you don't screw up. Please don't screw up. And another thing that I was really worried about is I felt like this movie would be a little too cluttered because of all of the actors and the mutants that are in the movie. And I gotta say that they handled it to the best of their abilities. Yes, some of the characters did suffer from a lack of development or a lack of screen time. But again, it's a huge cast. And even though they didn't get a lot of development, at least they got some screen time to show off their amazing powers, which is what I wanted to see. Yes, I would have loved to see some character development for them, and I'm sure they will give them some later on. But for what we got, I really liked it, and I'm glad that they put their powers on display. And one more other thing going off of that, I really love seeing the X-Men actually working as a team. I mean, in the fight scenes, they worked together. And that's exactly what the X-Men are. They are a team and they work together, and they showed that in the film. Thank you. And kind of going back to the visuals, the Sentinels, both the past and the future Sentinels, my God, these guys are just indestructible, unstoppable killing machines. They are literally a formidable opponent that honestly had them on the ropes many a times in this film. And this film gets brutal, guys. I'm not gonna lie. It gets brutal in the fight scenes, and there is a lot of death. A lot of death. And these Sentinels, man, I mean, I kind of thought that they looked like that Destroyer guy from Thor, but no, nothing like them at all. In fact, when you see him, or when you see these Sentinels, oh man, I'd never want to fight these things. And going off of the Sentinels, the story, I thought the story was very captivating, very compelling. I got invested in all the characters and their dilemmas and just the overall threat that the X-Men face. I mean, they're facing an undefeatable, indestructible, formidable opponent. And honestly, I feared for their lives. I didn't think that they would make it out. A couple of times in this film, I was on the edge of my seat. I was like, what's gonna happen next? Oh shit, are they gonna get out of this? Oh my god, what's gonna happen next? And besides the story of the X-Men dealing with the Sentinel threat, there's also this really good story following Professor Xavier as he deals with all the losses in his life, the dark places that he's gone, and him coping with that and moving on to become the leader that he was meant to be. And I just really love the direction that they took with this character. It was the direction I wanted them to take. Him down in the dumps, dealing with all of the terrible things that has befallen him, and him just being in this dark place and he needs somebody to take him out. And the relationship between him and Logan and how he kind of guides him, like Professor Xavier will later guide Wolverine, I thought that was really well handled. And I gotta say, Professor Xavier is the heart of this movie. Yes, Wolverine, Magneto, Mystique, and all the other X-Men, they're pretty badass, really cool, they have awesome powers, but the main drive of this movie, the heart of this entire movie, is on Professor Xavier becoming who he needs to be. Professor X. And since I already got into great detail about Professor Xavier, I guess I should go into great detail about the other characters. I thought all the characters were all interesting, and most of the main characters, at least the main characters in both the Matthew Vaughn X-Men and the Bryan Singer X-Men, they all got really good developments, especially the two that I wanted the most, Magneto and Professor Xavier. And they really handled their relationship just like they did in First Class. Yes, they still have kind of like that lingering friendship, but they're both on opposite sides of the same coin. One wants to be in peace with humans, the other one feels like we can't live in peace. It's either them or us. Also, the relationship between Professor Xavier and Mystique. Again, these two have been friends since they were very young, and the dynamic between their relationship has now changed. And Professor Xavier now realizes this, and the growth that they go through in their relationship is very fascinating and very well done. And lastly, the acting. I thought that it was solid across the board. From James McAvoy, Michael Fassbender, and Jennifer Lawrence as young Xavier, young Eric, and young Mystique, they all gave dynamic and emotional performances. Peter Dinklage as Dr. Trask, he did a really good job. I just wish he was given a little bit more. And of course, Hugh Jackman as Wolverine. I mean, do I need to say more? The guy just kicks ass. He owns the role. He handled all the emotional scenes very well. He handled all the comedy scenes very well. He did really good. As for Patrick Stewart and Ian McKellen, they both did really well as older Xavier and older Eric. I mean, you still feel the dynamic of their relationship in their older ages, and they gave really good performances, especially Patrick Stewart. There's a scene with Patrick Stewart that actually was my favorite scene in the movie. I mean, it was just so powerful. I really like that scene. And as for the other actors and actresses, although they didn't really stand out performance-wise, they did do a really good job at conveying the different emotions and personalities of their characters, and they did the best for what they were given. And honestly, I don't really have any major problems with this film. For the story that they were trying to tell, the execution was handled very well, and they did it to the best of their abilities. But I do have a few irritations and nuisances that I've mentioned earlier too, such as the fact that I wish the other mutants had more screen time and more character development. I would have loved to know more about these characters, especially if I don't know them as it stands. I mean, I'll be honest, I don't know much about Blink, I don't know much about Bishop, I don't know much about Kitty, Iceman, Colossus. I know that they're really cool, but that's pretty much it. There's not much character to them, and I would have loved to see more of that. But again, they were focused on one integral part of the story, and they did that very well. Also, although I did like how they meshed both the Matthew Vaughn X-Men very well with the Bryan Singer X-Men to make one whole X-Men mythos, there are a few continuity issues at display in this movie. But again, that's not really their fault. I mean, it's not like back in 2000 they knew they were going to make a movie in 2014 like this, so honestly, that's just a little bitty nitpick, but it did kind of irritate me. And the last irritation that I had is I wish we could have saw the build-up to this desolate future. I mean, in The Wolverine, which is the precursor to this movie, the world looked like it was doing really well. It was really fine. And then all of a sudden, bam, it's this desolate future. I was like, wait, how did we get to this point in the span of maybe less than a year? That was crazy to me, and I would have loved to see how he ended up like that. I'm pretty sure it didn't take place in 1 year. It maybe took place in many years, but again, they don't really address it, and I would have loved for them to have addressed it and see how we got to this point. But overall, as I mentioned at the beginning of this video, this is without a doubt the best X-Men movie I've seen. And if they just fine tweak all the little irritations that I had, I'm sure that the next X-Men is going to be even better. The powers are on full display, the characters are all fun, interesting. I felt their dilemma. The story was very captivating and compelling. The story of Xavier was handled very well. The acting is solid. The action scenes are intense, thrilling, and just fun to watch. There are a lot of fun action scenes in this movie, and I just loved how they mesh the Matthew Vaughn X-Men with the Bryan Singer X-Men to make one whole mythos. And I'm going to give this film a 5 out of 5 stars. I truly think that it's an epic masterpiece and that everybody needs to see it. I mean, I really enjoyed this movie and I cannot wait to see it again. But anyway, what did you guys think about this movie? Did you really like it, or are you really disappointed by it? And let me know, what is your favorite X-Men movie? Comment below and let me know. And I just want to apologize for the sloppiness of this review. I am very tired. It's like almost 3 in the morning as I'm doing this review, and I haven't got a lot of sleep, so apologies. Hopefully I got my points across and you guys could understand and it was coherent, I guess. And stay tuned, I will be reviewing Blended this weekend, so stay tuned for that. And I am working on my next anime review, and the monthly live chat will be next Saturday at 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Check that out. And also, speaking of checking out, go check out my new video on We Live Film on why we either love or hate Adam Sandler. Link will be at the end of this video. And until then, guys, hit that subscribe button if you're new to my channel. Welcome to the Black Critic Guy. Like this video if you really enjoyed it. And I'm Tony Walker II, the Black Critic Guy. Till then, peace, YouTube. I'm going to bed.
Oh,